If you're feeling frustrated by your children and teenagers asking you for more stuff than they need, you're not alone. This is something that I hear from parents quite often when I'm working with them about what do you do. It's really challenging today with so many new things, and they're always coming out as second and third editions, and children asking their parents for the latest thing. And what do we do about this? For those of you who've been around as long as me, you might remember back in the old days, about 200 years ago, it feels like, there were toys in cereal packets. And this was quite a new way of advertising and marketing. But what was still better than what we have now is back in those days, I have no commitment to All Brand or Kellogg's, by the way, I'm just showing what I have here on hand. There'd be one toy right at the bottom of the cereal packet. And if you were the lucky kid, see, there was one in there, and usually out of a choice of maybe 3 or 4 in total for the entire collection. And if you were the really lucky family member who happened to pour that cereal in that day where the toy came out, it was like the best day of your life so far. There was so much time to anticipate it. It wasn't about ripping it open, getting your hand in there and reaching in and grabbing the toy. We had to wait. And that beautiful process of waiting neurologically wires the brain to build the capacity to wait for something that you want. And that anticipation was almost more exciting than getting the toy itself. And there was no guarantee who was going to get it. There was no real structure in the 70s, 80s, and a bit of the 90s about whose turn it was to get the toy. It was just a matter of, it's your luck today. And children developed this resilience from that you don't always get what you want. Sometimes you need to wait for what you want, and sometimes you simply won't get what you want. And it's really important that we remember that it's not our fault that we're now in this next stage of challenge where it's getting harder for our children to wait because they're not having to wait as long for a whole bunch of reasons. And those reasons are different for every family and every person. But one thing that does make it a little bit trickier, I was thinking, when I was grocery shopping, and usually I say no to these little things, but I do have 3 children, and I was asked by the lovely person, I'm just collecting them in my hand here, I was asked by the lovely cashier, are you collecting Ooshies? And I was thinking, well, no, I'm not, but they sound like a bit of fun, and I'm sure the kids will be really excited when they're unpacking the groceries when I get back and they get to see this. So one grocery shop, I might add, there are 5 people in our family, so it was fairly sizable, but still it didn't feel sizable enough for the fact that we got all of these in one go, in one hit. We got all of these. Now, of course, when I arrived home, there was a lot of excitement. The younger 2 were like, what is this? And I'm like, I don't know, a whole bunch of things that we got with the groceries, these Ooshies. And so I said, finish, unpacking. Once you've unpacked the groceries, go for your life, And so they ripped them open, literally at a speed of just like boom, 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 rip open, and out they would all come. And it got me thinking, watching them, and they've really had some great fun with these. Apparently, they're also really great value because, first of all, they're free, kind of, and they're pencil choppers too. They've had a ball. They've had them on the dining table. They've been playing with them for the last few days, and they're really enjoying them. But it made me think how hard it's getting. It's getting harder and harder for our children to wait and appreciate things when just from one shop you can get that many items. And the collection, there's so many there. They had a couple of repeats in there, and it's really making it challenging for them to feel that excitement. The other example I often use is that one of Pass the Parcel. Back in the 70s, 80s, and a bit of the 90s, you'd be playing Pass the Parcel at one of your friends' houses, and the parents would have wrapped it up with however many sheets of paper they could be bothered at the time. They certainly did not count how many children were coming along to the party. And the joy in the 70s, 80s, and a bit of the 90s was just the fact you were playing a game. You know, someone had organised this game, and the joy of playing the game was where the fun was at. And if you were lucky enough to be one of the few children who got to open a wrapper, you thought you were winning. That was it. That was enough to feel like you were ahead of the game, and you would feel so delighted in that in itself. And then if you were the child that won the prize, then that was just about as good as it got. And that would be probably one of the first things you'd tell your parents about when they came and collected you. And the reason I'm talking about this is, again, that's another opportunity to neurologically wire yourself for waiting and the resilience that we need while we're waiting, and also that resilience of not getting what you want every single time you're engaged in something. And so now, for whatever reason, as culture and time and all of these things change, we all know, fellow parents, exactly how that game rolls today. And there's a prize in between every layer, and there's usually someone watching to make sure that every single child gets to unwrap a layer, and high anxiety and waiting of who's it going to be next amongst the kids, and then a little toy in between each layer that says, yep, it's just, here it is, you're winning, you're winning, you're winning. And I'm bringing this up so that we can understand why this is just a real challenge for us as parents. We want the very best for our children. We want them to be resilient. We want them to be able to cope with life and not getting what you want as early on in childhood as possible. But we need a shift. We need to be really courageous together as a group. And it is incredibly hard. And I'm about to give you the strategies to help with that. But I just want us to understand how we got here. It's nobody's fault. It's just where we're at. We're surrounded by materialism. Nobody is born materialistic. We are all born seeking nothing more than human connection, quality relationships with other people in our life. That is all a human being needs to thrive. Obviously, we need enough money so that we can access the things we need, but not so much money that we can have everything we want. Because if we have too many things, if we have more than we need, we start to align our sense of joy and happiness in material possessions, and that can lead to deep states of not being fulfilled later on in our life. And it also means, because life is unpredictable, we can have everything we want and need materially one day, and none of us know whether we will have that the next day. And really, when we're looking at resilience, we're preparing our children to cope with not having everything that they want, and understanding that life doesn't follow this straight line, does it? Think there's an up and down and around and about. And when we get used to coping without absolutely everything, then when we do lose things or things don't go as well, our brain has already had enough experiences in our life to neurologically wire for that resilience that helps us get through. It doesn't mean we won't be sad as adults, teenagers, later on in life when things go wrong. Of course we'll be sad. You're meant to be sad when you don't get what you want. You're meant to feel frustrated when things are tough in your life. Those emotions are healthy and normal responses to adversity. But what we do know is a person with a greater capacity for resilience is more likely to be able to bounce back from those challenges and not see it as my entire life is falling apart. And so we learn it through a bunch of things that I'll continue to share here on this YouTube channel. But we're talking today about materialism and what to do. So here's a few things that we can do. The first is have courage. It's really hard being a parent, and we love our children more than life itself. And when they come asking for something, and particularly when they lay on that, I'm the only kid in the school who doesn't have X, Y, Z. First of all, as soon as you start talking to your friends and other parents, you do discover that they are absolutely not the only child at school who doesn't have that thing. But it starts to make us feel really guilty and really bad. And because children's brains are still developing and they primarily operate off emotion, and that's how they communicate with us, we absorb that emotion and we start to get into a heightened state of that feeling ourselves as well. So just be conscious of that. So that's the first thing, is having the courage to breathe and stay calm through their requests. Their high emotion will pull us in to feeling like we've got to second guess ourselves and, oh my gosh, do I need to give this to my child? Is this something that is making them feel left out with their peers and with their friends? And so we need to firstly have the courage to calm ourselves down, not absorb that emotion, and give yourself time for those emotions to simmer in yourself so that your clarity of thought returns. And you might want to use some of those lines like, I can see you really want this and I need some time to think about it. Buy yourself time. You're allowed to think about things. You don't have to have an answer straight away. So use that line in your own words, obviously. And then the next part of courage is having the courage to say no, or not yet, or we're not ready to buy that for you, or this is something that you need to save up for yourself and continue to pay for yourself. I'm talking about mobile phones, right, with the teenagers. So having that courage, and it doesn't mean we're dumping our kids, right in the storm and just going, oh, well, sink or swim. Get used to it. I didn't have anything when I was a kid. I mean, there's no point saying that. It's belittling and it's not good for our relationship with our children. So instead, like everything I speak about, we deliver it with compassion and